Welcome to After the Poll, the video series where I take all of the comic books that I read for the current comic book week that I didn't cover on previous comic book videos and share my thoughts with you guys. I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you love daily comic book content, if you love me helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy, guys, you came to the right place. Before we get started, everybody, I just want to give a quick shout out to Mutant Beaver Comics. Guys, they have over 4,000 exclusive variants in their store. And they have top-notch customer service and great packaging. So if you love exclusive variants, guys, there's a link in my description box below, Corner 10. Not only can you save 10% off of your first purchase, but you can save every purchase after that. So why don't you check out mutantbeavercomics.com. All right, guys, so let me stumble and bumble my way through this as I am feeling extremely sick today. Don't have much of a voice, but I'm doing this one for you guys. Power Girl, this is issue 8. This is a 28-page comic for the price of $4. Written by Leah Williams. The penciler here is done by Eduardo Panzesca. Now, when it comes to this book, I don't usually read Power Girl. I think I read the first 2 issues and it was like a turnoff for me. And so what happened was, since House of Brainiac was so good, I wanted to see if Leah Williams can write a somewhat decent tie-in book, right? I wanted to see Kara's, I guess, involvement in the House of Brainiac storyline. So the artwork is okay in this comic book, but half the comic book has to deal with like her actually helping her buddy like rollerblade, and I'm like, what the hell am I freaking reading here, right? I think her name is Lilith, if I'm not mistaken, and Power Girl goes by the name of Paige now. I guess that's like her Clark Kent identity or whatnot. So yeah, there's that. So the beginning of this book was just very boring. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is your typical tie-in. But again, at times the art really shined in here. And then as you read, it just like the main events book, you know, it starts off lighthearted and then things get very intense as you get to see Power Girl go against Brainiacs like cyborgs and all those things like that. And then they retreat. And then what happens at the end of this comic book is that we get the explanation of what happens. It's nothing that we already didn't know if you read the main event. And then you wind up seeing like Lobo's people stuck in Metropolis or wherever it's at, and they want to take over the city. And we find out some weird weapon that turns motorcycles into like crazy motorized dragons. It was so weird, bro. Was this book horrible? No, it wasn't like horrible, but it was a book where you definitely don't need to read, right? So if I had to grade this book, this was a C- for me. The beginning of the issue was kind of pointless, and you got to the parts where Power Girl was interacting with the cyborgs that had some good action, and the interactions with Superman was good, and the ending left it pretty decent. But overall, it's not a must, guys. So if you needed to save some bucks, go ahead and pass this one up. Wolverine, Madripoor Nights. This is issue 3. This is a 28-page comic for the price of $4. This one's written by Chris Claremont, and the artist is done by Edgar Zalzar. The artwork is spectacular in this comic book, guys. Black Widow looks absolutely gorgeous in here, and this is pretty much a Black Widow-centric type of comic book, as we get to see her wheeling and dealing skills and going undercover as they're trying to go into this auction of this particular character, right? And just seeing the characters interact with each other was a lot of fun. I love seeing Wolverine in this book, and there's this one page in here where we get to see Wolverine in action in the paneling layout right here. This is so good, man. I really liked it, and I just love how the characters in this comic book seem like they are in character, right? Captain America trying to save lives, and that's what he's best at doing, and it ends on a crazy cliffhanger. So I definitely recommend this book. It was a lot of fun to read. If I had to grade this one, guys, I'm going to give this one a B. Excellent classic writing style from Chris Claremont, and it's kind of the way you remember the characters back in the day if you read them back then. Here we go, Green Arrow. This is issue 11. This is a 28-page comic for the price of $4. This is written by Joshua Williamson. The art is done by Phil Hister and Eric Gabster. We get to see a whole cast of characters in this comic, guys. It's like the whole Arrow family, and we get to see the Justice League as well, but it's not really the Justice League. We've gotten to see Ollie go after the Heroes in Crisis thing, the confessionary mask or whatever it is in this book. That was kind of the objective that Amanda Waller gave Ollie. And what I was hoping for in this comic book, I was expecting something a little different. I didn't expect this battle between the Justice League, and I also did not expect a whole exposition dump on Malcolm Merlyn. Now, do I think this is a great thing for newer readers? Yeah, absolutely. If you're not familiar with the character and you're not familiar with their rivalry and their dynamic, then this is a perfect jumping on point for you to understand these two characters. But if you've read this and you know who these characters are, then this is almost like a waste of time for you. And then by the time you wind up getting to the end of this, you wind up seeing Ollie fight basically his whole entire family again. The artwork is done by the two different artists, so it does make it for a little bit inconsistent artwork, but I understand why they do that in this comic book because of the history and the backstory of the characters. So this was your last 2-page spread here. So it looked pretty cool. Did this story blow me away? No, not really, because I'm looking more towards the confessional part of the story. I don't know why I felt like that was intriguing to me, and it kind of just like, okay, well, we retrieved the mask, and now we're just going to the Malcolm Merlyn part of it. So I was like, they kind of danced around that a little bit. It's like, oh, I just got the mask, and that's it. Now, I don't know. I thought there would be a little bit more confrontational or something different going on there, but nevertheless, still a solid book. I like it. It just didn't, I don't know. I was expecting something different this issue. So I'm going to give this one a B-. Guys, let me know in the comments below. What are you thinking of Green Arrow at this point? Superior Spider-Man. This is issue 6. This is a 28-page comic for the price of $5. The legacy numbering here is 51. Dan Slott's the writer. The art is done by Mark Bagley. Christos Gage also assists in the writing here. The artwork is what you can expect from Mark Bagley. It looks actually really good. The colors are bright and vibrant. There's a lot of action in this book between Spider-Man and Doc Ock here as they continue their debate about what to do with Supernova. And she was the character that's been created for this series. And I feel like at this point, we're on issue, 6, that this story has dragged on a little bit too much. At this point, it's like, okay, let's get over, saving Anna Marie and deciding what we're going to do with this Supernova character, and throwing Spider-Boy in this particular series I feel like feels a little bit forced, as you have Dr. Octopus's like spiders or this weird dimensional spiders infecting him and possessing Spider-Boy. But as you continue to read this story, the next arc, I guess, going forward here is these spiders are going to be infecting the entire neighborhood, and they're all going to be talking like Dr. Octopus. So you get to see the spider going up this guy's nose here, which is hilarious. And then all of a sudden he gets possessed, and they're all like, "You dolt, you idiot!" And the whole town is all of a sudden possessed by Dr. Octopus, which I think is kind of funny. But the whole Supernova thing, I was kind of over at that point, and just again putting Spider-Boy in this series doesn't really make sense either. If it's going to be Superior Spider-Man focusing against with Doc Ock and Peter himself, let it be that. It doesn't need to be Spider-Boy in here. It was okay book. Again, nothing here where it's like, oh my gosh, this is such a great book, So I'm going to give this one a C+. It's nothing here where it's very repetitive, and hopefully in the next issue we get away from Supernova and we dive into what's going on with the whole spiders infecting humans thing. It's kind of weird. Blade issue 10. This is the finale to the issue, and this is probably the first Blade series I ever stuck with. because it started off really strong. It's a 28-page comic for the price of $4. Our creators here are Brian Hill, and our artist is Elena Gasagrande. I don't even know. Artwork looks pretty good here, guys. I liked seeing the action when you did have action in this comic, but there really wasn't too much, and this was the final fight with the Adanya and Blade here. He comes face to face with her, and he obviously has some help here. Now, when it came to the lead-in into this comic, like I said earlier, the lead-in was really great. I felt the journey to get to this point was what made this series. This final issue was not a great conclusion. It was very cookie cutter, right? We wound up getting the pieces that we needed in order to defeat the main bad guy, and actually, in all reality, the final fight wasn't the best final fight I've ever seen, right? It was almost very predictable, and it was actually disappointing for such a pretty solid series. So at the end of the day, if I had to grade this particular book, I think it was very average. It was a C book for me, but the series itself, I would give it a B. I thought it was pretty good, and it was very entertaining with solid artwork. But for a conclusion, I was like, man, that's very average and very predictable. Spider-Punk Arms Race, this is issue 3. Why is there legacy numbering on this? Legacy 8. 28 pages, $4. Oh my god. Cody Ziegler's the writer. The art is done by Justin Mason. The artwork is good. It has its cool, distinct feel. I like the characters' facial expressions in the comic, and there is a lot of action in this book. This book is basically a fight with Dr. Octopus and all the other cast of characters in this comic, and obviously the objective of what Dr. Octopus wants to achieve in this comic, right? We do get some downtime in this book, but then when the downtime is over, we get a much different fight that happens through here. I thought that was pretty cool. And then we get to see Dr. Octopus's new Sentinel arise, and it's called the Great Sentinel Octo-Warrior Spider Slayer Prime. And I was like, oh yeah, that's great. They're using the Spider Slayer name. I was totally excited about that. And then when all hope looks bleak, right? Then all of a sudden you get the Spider-Man that comes out, and it becomes this mech robot. I was like, oh no. I'm like, are you kidding me? Now it's come a kaiju fight. I'm like, this is absolutely insane. But it's insane in the fun way. You know what I'm saying? This is one of those books that you can't take too seriously. It's an alternate universe. You get to see these characters in a different light. And it is what it is. And that's all I can say about that one. So really, it's a lot of fun. I'm going to give this one a B- this week. Wolverine issue 48. This is a 28-page comic written by Benjamin Percy and Victor Lavelle. The artwork in this comic is done by Corey Smith. The artwork looks good, man. I like seeing some of the scenes that happen in this comic. And in this issue, you do wind up seeing Wolverine get his memories back. Based off of what happened in the last issue, as Quentin Quire basically sapped Wolverine, it like scrambled his brain, and somehow it triggered his memories to come back, which was kind of cool. And you see two different sides of the story. You see Wolverine remember, and you get to see obviously the original Sabretooth going through some suffering in this book while he's like in this Venus flytraps thing. The cool thing here is that we also get to see Laura, who's trying to escape all these other Cyberteeth characters, and this one character by the name of Bad Seed is going after her, that actually like takes over an Orcus Sentinel and stuff like that. So that scene was actually really cool. But the whole thing of it all was seeing Wolverine depowered in this comic and trying to find a safe house that Forge created for him, and there's this secret weapon for him to use because he doesn't have any more of his powers. Now, answer my questions here, guys. If Wolverine is depowered, right, and he still has the adamantium skeleton inside of him, how is he strong enough to walk? Obviously, there's some strength that goes along with him being Wolverine, right? And if he doesn't have his healing factor, how did he heal from all those wounds enough to go back into a fight once again? That doesn't make sense for me. And then at the same time, like, not only does he has that skeleton within his body, but he finds this armor that would like double his weight again with these swords. So how does he function as a character? To me, that just doesn't make sense. I know I'm looking a little bit into it. It's just comic books. That's usually how I am. I'm very just like the shit over, goes over on my head. But I just find out, for me, it just doesn't make sense for the character. But if there's something there that I'm missing, just let me know in the comments below. But nevertheless, it's still an entertaining read. It's still fun to read. I've loved this series so far. This one seemed like a little bit of a downer of an issue, like not a lot of action that happened. So I'm going to give this one a B- this time around. But answer my questions in the comments below. What you think how Wolverine should be in his current state right now. The Avengers issue 13. This is legacy numbering 779. 28 pages for the price of $4. Our writer here is Jed MacKay, and our art is done by Francisco Mortaranio. I don't know, man, but this Francisco guy, I don't know who he is, but it's some of the best artwork that I've seen in Marvel Comics right now, man. When it comes to drawing all these different characters on the pages, all these Sentinels, all these action scenes, like, it looks spectacular. And the coloring in this comic book by Federico Bellini is absolutely phenomenal too. It complements the art beautifully. So look at this 2-page spread. I mean, that is some of the best stuff going right now, and that is what really helps this comic book, so Jed MacKay can really tell his story. Now, this comic book is basically balls to the walls action, as you get to see the Avengers defend their impossible city. It's their most recent headquarters against the Orcus Sentinels, and that made for a very interesting book. We have this new character, I think her name is Yuna, who has these bands that makes her interchange with Captain Marvel. So whenever Captain Marvel is needed, she can be in one place or be in another place. It's kind of like the Marvel situation in the movie, I guess, right? And then we get to see 3D Man's involvement in this comic book, and we get to see how he's part of the turning tide in this battle that happens in this issue. This book was really, really good, and I was this close to completely dropping it, but because of the Fall of X, I wanted to see what the involvement was with Iron Man and the other Avengers here. So I decided to keep it, and it was really good, and this leads me to believe that excuse me, Jed MacKay's artwork here, or Jed MacKay's storytelling for X-Men, might be really, really good. So at the end of the day, I'm going to give this book a B+. Really good stuff. Love the action, love the artwork. Looking forward to seeing what future stories are going to be involved for the Avengers. All right, I'm going to get through this one big time here. I need to speak my piece when it comes to Amazing Spider-Man. This is issue 48, legacy numbering 942. 28 pages for the price of $5, written by Zeb Wells. The art is done by Todd Nuck. The artwork is really good, guys. I really wish we would have a different ongoing artist for these books, because the book is already that much better when you have an artist that can help the writer tell the story, and it's not all just faces, you know. In this book, you wind up getting to see the return of Ben Reilly once again with Hallows Eve, and the what is her name, the Queen Goblin in here. And so we get to see Queen Goblin trying to get Ben Reilly to go into the Winkler machine to turn him into another goblin, which is hilarious. It was kind of this whole persuasion type of thing, and obviously it's not what Queen Goblin wanted, because she holds it against Hallows Eve and Chasm why she became this way. And there was a lot of action, and at the end of the day, Spider-Man prevails, and you wind up seeing Hallows Eve do their thing and Chasm do their thing. They probably have sex afterwards or whatever it is, and then, because they're happy to be with each other. And then at the end of this issue, we get another little story thread that's being told when it comes to the Sinister Six, on how obviously they want revenge on Spider-Man and how he's working for Norman Osborn, and that's it. And it says to be continued. Okay, so really we don't get any story progression. Was it a fun read? Yeah, it's a fun read. Lots of action here. You see Hallows Eve and Chasm reunited. We got a future story with the Sinister Six. But here's the problem. Right when Amazing Spider-Man always tends to get better and you have some good storylines or story threads that are about to appear, it always gets interrupted with some kind of freaking event. And what happens during the event? The story, the writing becomes more poor, in my opinion, and then the artwork becomes more poor, in my opinion, because every time we have an event or a major storyline, guess who comes back to the artwork? It's John Romita Jr. So I don't think we're going to see another good issue of the Amazing Spider-Man until maybe this Sinister Sinister Six storyline comes back. I know we're gonna get the whole Green Goblin story, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what to expect when it comes to the Amazing Spider-Man anymore. It's very frustrating in my eyes, but at least for this issue anyway, and the last issue, it was decent. So I'm going to give this one a B-. It's just always so inconsistent, and I think that's the very frustrating thing about this series. Alright guys, so there you have it. There are the books that I read for this current comic book week. Sorry I wasn't full of happiness and expression, and as I usually am, but this was a struggle even just to talk today. But tell me your thoughts in the comments below on what you thought of this week's comic books. And as always, guys, it's so much appreciated that you take the time to watch and comment and everything. It means a lot to me. If you love the content, there's always more right here for you to click on. Of course, guys, keep supporting those local comic shops. Keep buying, keep collecting, but always remember to read those comics so we can have that great comic conversation.